And now it's time for our next session, which is surrounding mind. And for that, I would like to invite on stage Vidisha Kaushal, Mr. Swami Laxmi Narayan ji, and once again our moderator Somya ji to please proceed with the session. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please request, let's put our hands together and invite our dignitaries on stage for the next session.
Vidisha Kaushal has been my teacher for several years. She taught me how to control the mind. She taught me the nature of the mind is thoughts. Swami Laxmi Narayan ji is from Partha Sarthi ji's institute. He taught me the desires, the cause and effect of the mind. They're going to speak today about things that we must know. We must all know about it, and we must all find a way to make things easier for us, for our children, our families, and people. So I'm passing the mic on to Vidisha Kaushal, one of the finest coaches I have ever experienced. I'd like her to introduce herself too.
Thank you so much, Somya. Am I audible? Right. Thank you for the sweetest introduction. And I think you've introduced fair enough. I don't want to really take up more time with the introduction. But just to quickly share, I have an academy called the Conscious Life Academy. And I believe that we're all living. But the question is, are we living consciously? And that's a journey that Somya has traveled with me across several years. So would it be okay if I say a couple of words about your journey?
Sure. Thank you.
I'm taking the liberty of sharing some interesting things here. So is there really a need for knowledge in this world right now? Do you guys think you need more knowledge?
Guys,
Really?
does anybody think we need more knowledge?
Aren't you getting a blast of it from just about everywhere? Social media and news and channels and I don't know what all. Who agrees with me? Let's be honest. How many of you are being bombarded by knowledge just about everywhere? And you're wondering, your phones are out of storage. Your devices are out of storage. Your mind is sometimes out of storage. Let's be real. Is that the case? So just as we all resonate, this is a universal experience. And that's where really Somya and I started. She was somebody with so much skill, so much capability, so much of information. And I've seen her blossom from moving from information stage to knowledge, to wisdom, inching towards realization. Do you get the drift? So there's too much information out there, but very little wisdom. And that's really the journey that I have seen Somya travel. That's how I've seen the seed of Pragya literally incubate and come into this beautiful form with all you lovely people here. Each one of you is co-creating this experience. This is not just Somya creating this or both of us contributing in our own ways. You're all co-creating this experience, this energy right now. Is that resonating? We're in this together. So yes, this is how her journey has been. And this is how I think what is happening to the individual is often happening to the collective as well, which is why we all resonate, which is why we are in this together. Otherwise, there's Lakme Fashion Week happening. There are tons of other things happening. If you were to resonate with something else, you'd be there today. But you're here. Are you here? Are you truly here? I often joke and say we all have out-of-body experiences every day. Do you realize that? Because we are not in the body. So many times you're sitting here and maybe the mind is thinking about, is the dinner sorted for the family? Do I need to go somewhere? Is everything all right? Will I get a ride back? Is there too much traffic? These are all mini out-of-body experiences, aren't they? So that's where we are today. And I think that's what we are going to explore through diverse and enriching viewpoints. I'm looking forward to this, Somya.
So Vidisha, when we wake up in the morning, The mind is full of its stories. It's created like, I have to do this, I want to do this, and this is to happen, and that is to happen. Can you give us a tool how we can catch that thought? And is it a thought or is it a reality?
So if we just understand the primary nature of the mind, then the time of the day also doesn't matter. But of course, the morning is very important. And so is the night. And so is the rest of the day. The nature of the mind is that what we feed into it gets multiplied. And then thoughts become things. If I just think for a moment there's an elephant in this room, then clearly I'm not going to manifest an elephant in this room. But if this is a sustained thought and if it is repeated often enough, I might manifest an elephant outside the gates. How many times has this happened with all of you? You've thought about something repeatedly, especially if it is negative. I hope I don't have an accident. I hope I don't get late. And what happens? We get late. So when you're saying we wake up, Somya, we're not waking up with thoughts which have come from somewhere else. Remember, these are thoughts that have been stored within us. So one clear thing is to look at the supply. What is the quality of intake? And I'm glad Dr. Sachdeva spoke about it earlier, that the quality of what we put into the mind, whether it is in the form of news, or it is in the form of the words that we speak, or the thoughts that we think. These days, everybody wants to do affirmations, and that's wonderful. But what do you do the rest of the day? Those 15 minutes or half an hour or 1 hour of affirmations and inner work can surely give you the charge that you need. But what about the rest of the day? You can deplete yourself in a matter of minutes, being with somebody who's constantly complaining, whining, not connected to their inner nature, or if you yourself are doing that. So waking up in the morning, coming down to the question that you asked, one part is correction of the supply, which can't happen in the morning. That's a lifelong practice, and that needs to happen throughout the day. But what we can do is start the day on the right note. And by that I mean, is the mind leading you? Or are you going to command the mind? When you wake up in the morning, are you merely a receiver of what the mind is sending your way? So the mind starts giving all the leftover thoughts about what if this happens, what if that happens, what if I'm really not well because I'm getting palpitations. Oh, I read that cortisol levels are high in the morning. Oh, I think all those things about diabetes and sugar and insulin, and what if you're just churning all of that? Now, who's throwing all that at you? Your mind. So are you going to start your morning, or is the mind in the driver's seat? And let's assume for a moment that the mind is in the driver's seat. Fair enough. What do we do now? Because you're going to say, okay, Vidisha, you're questioning everything, but what do I really do about it? You get into the driver's seat. You first make a conscious decision, something as simple as, I am setting the intention of my day. As simple as that. No matter which religion you're from, what practice, you could be an atheist and do this and it'll still work. I always take atheists into account. I think they're very honest people, some of them. So just picking up an intention for the day, saying that I intend this from my day. I'm going to make the most out of my day. I'm going to stand up for myself today, or I'm going to be observant of my thoughts today. I'm going to be more mindful in my day. That itself can make a big difference. Another quick tip would be release all the negative stuff that is pounding in your mind. It's got to go somewhere. Let's stop suppressing it because that hasn't worked. That's like you keep pressing a spring and it's going to bounce back. So let's release it. Journaling is something so simple, so simple. You could chant, you could journal, you could even go for a run and then do those affirmations that you want to do. Because what you're doing is you're releasing that energy. And of course, there are other more evolved methods also. But to start with, I'm naming things which are so simple that anybody of any age, any kind of a person can do it. And once you've released is when you fill yourself up. Just like the body releases, Somya. One thing to remember is if you apply the same principles that you apply to your body, to the mind, you will be sorted. Just like the body needs to release every morning, release. And similarly, you fill in the mind. You decide what you're going to fill into the mind. Now comes your meditation, now comes the yoga, now come even simple things like affirmations, whatever you want to do. But don't hop, skip, jump, right? That would be like taking, really pushing things under the carpet and pretending nothing's happened. So that would be really a way to start the morning, even if you're really filled with a lot of negative thoughts or fears.
So Vidisha, what I have understood is the practice that has taken me almost 7 to 8 years to do, to be able to come this far. For children, I feel the first thing they do is touch their phones. Even with adults, they look at their computers or they're already rushing and running for work. How does this impact the mind, the vibrations? How does the environment, how does the mental health issue come into play here?
With this way of living and being, is that your question?
Yes, it is.
I know we've been talking about children and we've been talking about education. And I've been yearning to say this out here. Before we talk about the children, we got to talk about ourselves. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And we got to take responsibility of that. And if that means unlearning some things and learning some things, then so be it. Where have the children learnt it from, Somya? They've learnt it by watching us. We've not been giving them sermons on pick up your phone and do this. We've been lecturing them quite the other way around. But what have we been practicing? How many times, how many of us have slept scrolling reels? I'm not going to ask for a show of hands here. How many times are we consuming Netflix content, binge watching it? And for what? To escape something in our lives. And that is what is being transferred to the children. So first thing is that there is no teaching of children by bypassing the prominent adults in that child's life. It would be unfortunate to try and do things otherwise. Yes, if somebody didn't have a parents, we'd have a different story. But we're talking about homes where we are demonstrating this behavior day in and day out. And children learn by what they watch, by what they absorb. They don't learn by what lectures we give them. In fact, let them come to an age where they're teenagers, and you're going to get it back. They will serve it back, dish it back royally to you, saying, you're doing this, how come you're telling me this? I see a few smiles here. So clearly it begins there. However, let's say the damage has already happened. It's already the case. Begin with yourself. Correct your way of living. And that means being in a certain consciousness. It doesn't mean pretending to be. And then we earn the right to decide what are healthy boundaries in a home. So if the dining table is no gadget zone, then it's no gadget zone for mommy and papa also, not just for the child.
So lead by example is what you're saying?
Absolutely. And what I also say is, Somya, children are aching for the connection. I work with children as well. They don't say it, they don't behave like it, but they're yearning for the connection. Watch them sometimes near their grandparents or near animals. And then you'll get to know how thirsty every child is for the connection. Because children come beautifully in with their energy. And it is the world, the conditioning, the atmosphere that truly starts conditioning them in a certain way. So that reconnection is actually something deep within they are yearning for.
So would it be right if I said that we're all, as adults, also so caught up in what we desire that we have ignored our children and at times not been able to guide them with how they need to wake up, how they need to control the mind, how and what is the nature of the mind?
I think the question of ignoring our children comes later. We've ignored ourselves. We've ignored ourselves. We've drowned ourselves with distractions, from shopping to smoking to drinking to watching Netflix. What is any of this? It's just a distraction because we don't want to face what's happening within. And so first betrayal is of the self.
So the first betrayal is of the self. Absolutely right, Vidisha. She is my coach, guys. So she aligns me anywhere and even on stage today. So yes, thank you. I understand now. And I hope you guys also understand there is a need of the hour to understand that it is a very important tool and we need to know how to use it. Vidisha, what do you think about affirmations? Because it's become the hot new thing to do. Everybody's doing affirmations. And it seems like when they're doing affirmations, they are coming from these desires, these unfulfilled desires. But where are those desires coming from? We're going to ask Swamiji, and then we'll ask your opinion on this as well.
Thank you, Somya. So your question is, where are these desires coming from, right? So if you go back to the scriptures, in fact, in Bhagavad Gita, there is shloka number 62 and 63 of chapter 2, where Sri Krishna says, the desires, that is kama. The kama comes from attachment. And how does the attachment get formed? It gets formed by your unconscious, unintelligent thought flow, right? When I see something, like I see certain things here, a thought comes, beautiful it is, you know. But if I unconsciously keep sending the thoughts towards that, an attachment is formed.
Okay.
Like for example, a young boy goes to a party, right? And then he sees a girl there. He likes her. Just a thought comes, oh, she's beautiful. But he keeps sending the thoughts, you know. So then it becomes attachment, unconsciously. So it says, dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayate. Sangha means attachment. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. From attachment comes desire. So therefore, what is happening is when the boy keeps on sending thoughts towards her and he develops attachment, then when he goes back home, you know, he is going to brush his teeth, he's looking at the mirror, instead of seeing his reflection, he's seeing that girl's reflection. Because what has happened is, she started occupying his mind space. So this is how the desire gets formed, from attachment. And where does that attachment come from? Vedanta goes back and says it comes from ignorance, etc.
Okay, so we are all attached to our children. We're all attached to our families and friends. Where do we draw the line?
No, there is no question of drawing the line. See, the problem is, attachment is detrimental. In fact, we suffer because of attachment. In fact, my Guru Swami Parthasarathi has written a book called Holocaust of Attachment. He says this is a bigger virus than anything else. You know, the biggest virus is attachment. We got to understand attachment is not love. The problem is, all of us are thinking that attachment is love. There's a complete difference between attachment and love.
So are we attached to our possessions also?
Of course.
Are we attached to our items of belief, being of belief?
Everything we are attached to. We are attached to children, therefore we destroy them. We destroy our relationships. We are attached to our spouses, therefore we destroy our relationships. We are attached to our gadgets. Morning, as soon as you wake up, you know, half eyes open, you will search for your mobile. Right? If you don't find it, you get the heart attack immediately. You understand? So you're attached to your gadgets. You're attached to people. You're attached to land. You're attached to religion. Most of the fights that's going on in the world is for what? It's for land and religion, religious beliefs. So you're asking, are we attached to our concepts? Of course we are.
Okay, then my next question to you is, what happens when children especially, let's say, doctors, lawyers, or business heads, they want their children to join their businesses. How does the child feel, and how does this attachment impact the society and our being at that time?
See, first of all, when you talk about, especially you talked about doctors, lawyers, they have their own practices, and they want it to be taken forward by the kids. When they grow up, they want the kids also to be doctors or lawyers. That's what you're asking, right? Is that correct? See, first of all, everyone in this universe is unique. God does not paint the same picture again. Let's understand that. You understand? God is tremendously original. There is no question of painting the same picture again. You may look alike. You are similar but not same. So therefore, in fact, Khalil Gibran says, every child has come into this universe through the parents. They are not yours. They have come through you. You understand? So they are unique. So you got to understand that they have their own nature. You have to be a soil to help them to grow. In fact, they'll grow better if you step aside. The more you are in their life, the less they grow. You understand? So as a father or a mother, like she rightly said, you got to set an example. Like in tennis, they call it as double fault. There's a term called double fault. So we are doing that. We don't set the example, but we lecture. What we are supposed to do is, we are not supposed to lecture, we are supposed to follow certain example. So therefore, when it comes to children, we got to understand that they must choose what is called as their swadharma. Dharma means nature, swa means one's own. You cannot force yourself upon them. If they incidentally like to do business and you're having a business, let them take it up.
May I ask you another question, please?
Yeah.
Partha Sarthiji talks about knowledge and the intellect. May I ask you to throw light on the difference between knowledge and intellect?
See, as Vidisha ji asked, do you want more knowledge? And she herself said, today you are bombarded with information. Knowledge is nothing but information that we get from outside. There are certain doctors, I'm not saying everyone, few I know, they are heart specialists, right? They have better information than you and me about how harmful cigarettes are for the heart. But they cannot bring themselves to control their smoking habits. They know. You don't have to give them a lecture about how harmful cigarettes are, isn't it? They're heart surgeons, but they cannot control. So intellect is the equipment in you which has the ability to control the mind, provided it is developed.
May I ask you once again another question? That is, how does a child know the difference between intelligence or intellect? Where can it be introduced to them? How can it be introduced to us also?
See, when you say child, in India especially, we talk about our grown-up children also as child. My child, how do I deal with my child? Then I ask them, how old is your child? They say 25. 25 is not a child. So when you say child, see, when you start asking questions, so about the age of 10 or 11, or maybe 8 or 9, when they start asking questions, you got to encourage that question. We got to ask, we also should ask questions, and we should encourage them to ask questions. The way we can develop the intellect is like developing the muscle. The more you exercise, the more you develop. Similarly, you got to ask more questions to develop the intellect. You got to question everything and not accept anything for granted.
And what about intelligence then?
See, intelligence is what we gain from outside. It is being well informed in one or more subjects. So, intelligence is also an aspect of the intellect, but that is alone not enough.
So what is intelligent again?
Intelligence is being well informed in one or more subjects. Like I'm intelligent, let's say, if I'm a doctor, especially a heart specialist, I'm intelligent in that field. But my intellect is not strong enough to control my habits.
So the intellectual knowledge, the knowledge of the self, and the intellect are three different knowledges, I understand?
See, when we say knowledge of the self, when we talk about self, we are I assume we are talking about Atma.
We are indeed.
When we talk about Atma, it is not just knowing about Atma, right?
Yes.
When we say knowledge of the self, we talk about a person who is established in it, not just knowing about it. Today, especially, a lot of people say, I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, I am Atma. But what has happened? Nothing has happened. Like she said, are you consciously living every moment? No. But if you know yourself, you will live every moment consciously.
Okay. And what was the purpose, or what is the purpose of our life?
The purpose of life is simply to live. But the problem is our mind wanders. It goes to the past, it goes to the future, it's seldom in the present. That's what she said. She's having an academy, Conscious Life Academy. How conscious are we? We are here. The event is from 4 to 7 or 8. In these 3 hours or 4 hours, how many hours we were here? We are not here. We were existing here. But so therefore, a lot of us aspire to live 100 years. Swami Ramtirtha lived only 32 years. But he lived consciously. Whereas we live 100 years, out of which, if you see every day, 1/3 of our life we are sleeping. Isn't it?
I
so like
agree.
that, if you calculate, very little time we really live. So therefore, the purpose of life is to live, which means to be in the present. For that, you need to develop your buddhi, intellect, and control your mind and direct yourself so that you can be a CEO of life.
I want you to throw some light upon, we are born to give and not take.
Come again? There?
I'd like you to throw some light upon, we are born to give and not take.
See, the question is about giving and taking. Nothing other than human being takes. Understand? In this country, we worship bulls, right? We worship bulls for what? Because they take very minimum and contribute maximum. If you see a coconut tree, the first 3 years or 5 years, it constantly takes. Then after that, till it dies, it continuously gives. Similarly, as human beings, we educate ourselves up to the age of 20 or 25 or 30. So those many years, we are constantly taking from the society. And once we have strengthened our roots through this education, which is what we are supposed to do, that's what he was talking about when he talked about education. So when we have strengthened our personality, then the rest of our life, we are constantly obligated to give back to the society from which we have taken. So therefore we say, Tera tujhko arpan kya lage mera. Meaning, whatever I have taken from this universe, a total, I am now going to pay back till I die. Prophet Muhammad also supposed to have lived on this principle that, you should only be giving, not think about receiving. In fact, we talked about breathing and all that in between, right? So now, can you only breathe in without breathing out? Try it out. Today will be your last day, right? So you breathe in and breathe out so that you can breathe in more. So life is to give, not to take.
Okay, last but not the least, I'd like you to throw some light upon how us as individuals can grow through the learning of the mind, the intellect, and for children, what kind of subjects could they enjoy, learn, and be grateful for?
See, the difference between mind and intellect. Generally, we use the term man. Man means mind. Mind can also include intellect. But when we say mind and intellect separately, mind is the indiscriminate thought flow. Intellect is the discriminate thought flow. That's all. You understand? Intellect is the faculty in you which can think, reason, judge. Mind is full of likes and dislikes, impulses, feelings, emotions. So firstly, we need to understand this. And if you want to develop the intellect, like I said, by questioning, you will start developing the intellect. But not all of us can think without a text or a book. Like we need certain equipments to exercise our muscles. You can also exercise your muscles without equipments, but how many of us can do that? So
Right.
Similarly, we need food for thought. So there are scriptures which a child can be exposed to according to the age. So I would say at the age of 9, 10, slowly start exposing children to the higher values of life, education, books, etc. Like our own scriptures, or even some of the books like Swamiji has written, poetries. Poetry from Western world, not from India, right? It can be from anywhere, doesn't matter. Wherever we think are stuff which can help children to learn through questioning, we got to encourage that. For that, like she said, we also should be seen reading. Not just seen reading, we should really read. Yeah.
So how I understand, Vidisha said the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. And also with you saying that we should encourage question, we should encourage and lead by example as parents and people of being. Vidisha, is there anything you'd like to add to the session?
I think it's, you did ask about the affirmation, so I will touch upon that. And you did speak about desires. A very simple way of asking yourself sometimes, because a lot of people say, I'm a grihast, I'm not a sannyasi, I have desires. How many of you resonate with that? You have desires. I'm raising my hand with you. So we do have desires sometimes. So are all desires bad? Are desires about your well-being bad? So the point is, where are the desires coming from? Are they coming from the true self? Or are they coming from some kind of a rat race, from the ego, or from some other corrupted identity that we are holding on to? So if we are doing affirmations or visualization or any of those techniques, more important than that technique is, where is that desire coming from? Okay, I want a car. I want a red Ferrari. Now, there is a thought that I want a red Ferrari. Is there anything wrong with that? Nothing wrong, like Swamiji said. It's okay, you see a girl, you like her, there's nothing wrong with that. But now, does the thought of having a Ferrari start owning you? Are you going to own the Ferrari, or is the thought of owning a Ferrari owning you? That's what's important, and that's where what he said so beautifully about attachment comes in. And the ability to discern, not judge, discern that is this love, is this playfulness, is this just reaping my own potential, seeing how much can I expand, that's something beautiful. So if you're trying to expand your skills, your monetary wealth, anything, it could be absolutely beautiful. It could be the best thing you could do. But what is the driving force behind it? That's what's important. Not just the affirmation, not the visualization. There is no equation, no mantra, no chemistry formula that you can pick up and start chanting this 21 times and you will manifest this. And then what? Sit with anxiety, misery. And again, I emphasize, it's not that having a desire or being able to expand ourselves or living up to our full potential is something bad, but where is it coming from? That's important. And then comes, of course, that do affirmations work? Is it okay to do that? I think yes, it's beautiful to do that, because if you look into any of the indigenous cultures, especially so in India, we start with a beautiful sankalp, right? That's what intention setting is. It's all the same. The knowledge could come from, the information could come from different sources. But if you dig within, if you reach the wisdom stage, you'll realize the principles are the same, unless you live on a superficial level. So affirmations are great, but one misunderstanding that everyone has is that affirmations are positive statements. No, they're not. Affirmations are anything that is getting deeply ingrained upon you, whether it is words that you're thinking, or words that you're speaking, or words that you're visualizing. It is all affirmation. So I see a lot of people laughing now. Think about it in your entire day. How many times are we affirming things that we don't want, or which we don't want to be aligned to, and yet we're doing it, so those are affirmations too. We can't be pretending to live in consciousness for that 1 hour. We got to establish ourselves, like Swamiji said. We got to be living it. We got to walk the talk, and that's what it is. But yes, they do work, and repetition is great if you are coming from that consciousness. Otherwise, it's just parroting it. And yes, repetition is important because it impresses upon the subconscious slowly, just like negative stuff impresses upon our subconscious mind. But let's not do, a lot of painting over surface that is infected. We got to do the real work, and then tools like affirmation definitely help.
Okay, and when we wake up in the morning, as we all discuss, most of us look at our phones, check out our emails. How does it impact the mind?
I think all of you do know that. We've touched upon it earlier also. Research says that we approximately think how many thoughts in a day? Any guesses? 84,000. I wonder how they arrived at 84, but anywhere between 60 to 80,000 or so, right? And guess what? They've also realized that most of these follow a pattern. So they're repetitive. And guess what? A lot of them, majority of them, are so-called negative. What is called negative. So if we wake up in the morning, and to come down to your question that we actually stuff ourselves up with all this, we are literally setting our energy for the day, and how you start your morning is pretty much how you live your day, and how you live your day is how you live your life. So you got to be honest. There is no sermon being given here. Is this what I am aligned to? Is this what I want my life to be about? And if it isn't, change tracks. It's never too late.
Would it be okay to say desires come from family patterns, DNAs, and fears?
Some desires could, yes. A lot of desires could come from that space also. You could be somebody who desires to have a certain social status, certain financial status, because you're embarrassed about the story of the family. Because at some point in the family, there was some lack experienced. And yet you were maintaining a front. Now that could lead to desires coming from that space. However, there could be somebody who's just unfolding in his true potential and saying, I just realized that the source is playing through me. And it's created this. And now let me see what more it can create. And that can be beautiful.
Okay, I'm going to ask Swamiji to wrap the session on the 3 times of the day, the Rajasic, Tamasic, and the Sattvic, and how does that impact our mind, our behavior, and how we think and how we react.
See, when we talk about, can you hear me? When we talk about Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic time, our scriptures say that 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., what they call as Brahma Muhurt, right? That's the best time to develop Sattva in you. Sattva meaning balanced state of mind. Every human being's mind is made up of these 3 temperaments called Sattva, which is balanced state, calm, composed, serene. And then Rajas is the state of mind which is passionate, restless. And then Tamas is the state of mind which is indolent, lazy, lethargic, heedless, etc. So morning hours between 4 and 6 a.m., they say it's conducive for the development of Sattva, right? And 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is Rajasic time. 6 p.m. onwards, it is indulgent time, right? And Somya, you've organized this in the indulgent time. Anyway, so what they're trying to say is, go to bed early, because otherwise there's tendency for you to indulge, So go to bed early, rest your body, rest your mind, then wake up early, then you can invest your thoughts in the positive things, right? And then develop the positive aspects in you. Therefore, doctor also talked about the body clock and everything, So if you kind of create it as a habit, going to bed early, waking up early. When we say 4 to 6 a.m. is good for developing Sattva, obviously, assuming that you should have gone to bed by 9 or 10 or 10:30. You go to bed at 3:30 and get up at 4, you cannot develop Sattva. It's not possible.
Right, so how we understand and how I would like to summarize this is that we have to be aware of the kind of thoughts when we wake up in the morning, impact of gadgets when we wake up in the morning. It could be a repetitive thought coming from patterns, from lifestyles, lifetimes, family, backgrounds, fears, and desires. But we know why in the evening it is the time when people are either indulging, and that impacts our next few hours, which we have to be conscious of, and that is where the intellect comes in. And intellect is something that does not grow in a day, and therefore we are the leaders of leading by example to our children, and what they see is what they behave like.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it's very, very important to set an example. You know,
Vidisha,
extremely
I'd like to add to that, please. Oh, thank you.
I think being responsible, if there is something you're looking to take away, I'd say being responsible is very important. And being responsible means you have the ability to respond. It doesn't mean a burden. So just understanding that I'm the one responsible for my life, irrespective of what my sanskars were when I came into this lifetime, I still have the power to be responsible, irrespective of what my family patterns are, what trauma you've gone through, or what hidden aspects or shadow aspects lie there. Irrespective of all of that, you can take charge. You can begin somewhere, and you can begin simple, but stay true to your journey. And educate, you've been talking about education. You know, the actual word educate comes from a Latin word, which means to nurture. But if I look into the Oxford Dictionary, the English word education, it means to train somebody according to a given methodology and a system and blah, blah, blah. And I totally resonate when you say that word is so outdated now with that meaning. So truly, if we are to nurture ourselves, we got to take responsibility of it. So we got to stop passing the buck anymore. Yes, you may have had a childhood which was difficult. Yes, you may have family circumstances which could be testing. Guess what? You start working on yourself, you'll be thanking those challenges of your life, because they propelled you to not settle for a mediocre life, but to look for true meaning. I suffered from Bell's palsy one fine day, 2012, and I thought my life was over. I was in the corporate world back then, managing communication training, and my face was the bread and butter of the company. And I thought, this is it, it's all over. Repeatedly in my entire spiritual journey, I thank that occurrence. I'm so grateful that I didn't settle for the track of mediocrity. I truly sought meaning, and you all can. And that's what I want to say here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vidisha. So we've come to the end of this session, and here we have just covered the mind in a very brief manner. There's a lot to study, there's lots to learn, and once again, we will be talking about in our future sessions, and we intend to take the knowledge of the Vedanta, which is the study of the mind and the intellect. The word intellect is foreign when it comes to the mind. I'd like to thank you for joining us. Thank you, Vidisha. Thank you.